Hello everyone. So I'm making this video as a walkthrough for the last assignment, the imagery, categorizing imagery into its types assignment. I feel like there were some confusions here and there, and I hope that this video sheds some light on that. So just keep following along. That's pretty much it. Okay, so as we know, there are 5 kinds of physical imagery. You have your visual, your auditory, tactile, olfactory, and gustatory. Just in simple terms, your visual imagery is stuff that you can see. Auditory imagery is describing stuff that you can hear. Tactile is how it feels to the touch. Olfactory is smells. Gustatory is tastes. The whole point is that these don't necessarily have to be things that someone is doing, but rather it is the part of your brain that is being triggered every time. When we go down these questions, I hope that makes some more sense. Okay, so the first one, I feel like a lot of people got this one wrong. So it goes, her perfume sent shivers down my spine. Now, I feel a lot of people hung on to the word perfume, and then they immediately went for olfactory or imagery that you can smell. However, this sentence is not really talking about how the perfume smells. The focus of this sentence is here. Shivers down my spine. That is the sensation that is being conveyed. And it's the word shivers especially which does that. So this is definitely tactile imagery, not olfactory. Moving on. A thunderous silence rang out after the gunshot. So this is really straightforward. Your keyword here would be silence, which tells you that it's all about sound, or in this case, the absence of sound after a very loud sound. So it's a lot of juxtaposition happening here. And again, thunderous silence, that's a nice contrasting phrase there, which again brings into focus how silent it actually was. Okay. Next, the bars of his cell were as cold and unforgiving as the punishment for his crime. A little simile going on there. So what you had to focus on was definitely the word cold. That was the most telling word in this phrase. Unforgiving isn't exactly a very physical word. It's much more abstract. But the word cold, definitely physical, and tells you that this is about how cold the bars were to the touch. And again, if it's touch, it is tactile imagery. Okay. This one had the audience divided a bit, and I pretty much accepted all answers because this wasn't that easy to distinguish. Summer meant shining sun and salty sea spray against her face. So this can be very visual as well. Like summer meant shining sun. Like if you're focusing on the giant ball of fire in the sky, it can be very dominating. But on the other hand, you can't really see sea spray. You can't see it. However, you can feel it against her face. She's feeling both of these things. She's feeling the sun and the sea spray against her face. So I think the strongest case you can make here is definitely tactile imagery. However, visual would have been acceptable as well, and some people went for gustatory because of the word salty. But I think this is the order of dominance, if you will. I would say tactile is the most dominant imagery here, the most dominant sense here, because you can feel these things. And then it's visual, and then in the end it's gustatory because it's not really about the taste of the sea spray. It's more like describing the sea spray as well itself, because we know that seawater is salty, right? Okay. I see colors when I hear your voice. Now that's from a song, so it is very abstract. It is very metaphorical. The emphasis isn't exactly on hearing the voice. We don't know what the voice sounds like, hence it cannot be auditory imagery. The emphasis is on seeing colors. So if you're seeing something, it is definitely visual imagery. All right. Also, this is a actual neurological condition called It's called synesthesia. Synesthesia, in which your mind can actually see colors. Okay, moving on. My dog pressed his warm, wet nose into my palm as he begged for a treat. I feel this is pretty straightforward. So this would be warm, wet, and obviously the action itself all tells you that it is very much tactile. You can actually feel it on your palm. Okay. It was a dark and stormy night. Our favorite cliched opening. Very straightforward. It's stuff that you can see. It's literally looking out at a black, an extremely cloudy night, a thundery night. You could make a case that stormy indicates a sound, like the sound of thunder, but again, we don't know. And if, again, you're combining it with dark. It's dark and stormy. So the stormy night could also just have been a lot of clouds. It could have been the wind. It could have been a lot of things. But the dominant imagery here is definitely visual. Okay. Next one. The bluebird perched on the thin branches of the forlorn tree. A lot of fancy words here, but the fact is that you're looking at all of this. So it ends up being visual. There's no other sense being triggered at all. Some people went with auditory, but in this sentence, the bluebird isn't saying anything. It's not really making any sound. So you will have to go for visual, like it's a scene that you can see before you, rather than auditory. All right. The New England clam chowder gave off a delightfully putrid aroma. This has the very straightforward keyword aroma. Aroma is significantly used or almost always used to describe smells. So if it's describing a smell, it is an olfactory imagery. And the word putrid, maybe that threw some people off, but you should definitely look up the meaning. It means rotten. Something that is rotting, something that is, it's a very strong scent in itself. And again, delightfully putrid is again playing on that contrast, which we will discuss in the next lesson, actually. Okay. Then you have thick smoke billowed from the wizard's wizened mouth, taking the shape of a ship sailing on the autumn breeze. A lot of unintentional alliteration happening here with wizards, wizened, and ship sailing. But again, very straightforward. This is visual imagery. This is something that you're seeing happening. There is no sound to this. You can't really say that. There's no sound of the wind blowing out of the air blowing out of his mouth. There's no sound of that. Some people called it olfactory because I think they focused more on smoke, but it doesn't say that the smoke really has a smell here. It's not being triggered. They called it thick. That means that it is something that you can see. Again, it's all very, very visual. Okay. All was silent until a screech tore through the street. Really straightforward. The word screech is a straight giveaway that it is auditory because screeching is a sound. So that's auditory imagery right there. Then you have this one which actually had people divided. Anger always crept up like bile at the back of my throat. So a lot of people went with tactile, and I feel like it's because they hung on to this bit. Crept up. Sure, that does make a sense that there is a bit of a sensation going on, like there's something crawling in your throat. However, the emphasis of this sentence, the imagery it's trying to create, it's definitely of the bile. That is where the focus is. And bile, if people don't know, it's like vomit at the back of your throat. And that has a very, very pronounced taste. So definitely what the writer would want the reader to leave with this is the taste in their own mouth. So it's definitely gustatory. It's not the focus isn't on tactile. The dominant sense here is definitely gustatory. Okay. The broken down bar reeked with the stench of dry vomit and old liquor, I know. So again, you have your telltale words, reeked, which literally means smelled bad, and stench, which in itself is a bad smell. You have these key words. It is auditory. Some people went with visual because I guess they could picture the dry vomit and the old liquor. But again, the focus here is definitely on the stench and the reek. Okay. Moving on. Stroking Kitty's fur proved that he deserved the title of softest boy. I think that's pretty straightforward. First, you're doing something, you're stroking Kitty's fur, so you automatically know that you are touching something. And the word softest here is also a telltale sign that the sense that's being relied on is of touch, so it's tactile imagery. All right, because we don't exactly know what the fur looks like. We don't know what the fur looks like, we know what it feels like, hence tactile. Okay, next, the ancient cathedral echoed with a wailful choir. Again, straightforward. You have the word echoed, you have the word choir. Choir is church singing, it's religious singing, chanting. They're all sounds, hence it should be auditory, right? Audio-try, yes, that's what I meant to say, absolutely. Okay, next. You have raucous laughter roared as the comedian exited stage left. So again, really straightforward, laughter is a sound. The word roared also indicates a sound. Hence this is also, I'm just gonna copy it this time, auditory. Okay, cool. This one also I feel like a lot of people got wrong because it's tricky, it really is tricky. So my tongue singed under the searing heat of the habanero peppers. Okay, first off, know the meaning of the word singed. Singed means lightly burnt, all right? Because he's eating something spicy. And then your second clue is under the searing heat of whatever. The point is when we're talking about heat, when we're talking about temperature and something being burned, it's very tactile, not gustatory. I feel like focusing on the word tongue because we call it taste, the sense of taste, can lead to that confusion that, hey, it might be gustatory, but there is no flavor here. We don't know what it tastes like. We just know it's hot. It's the heat of the spice rather than the flavor of the spiciness itself. So yeah, that was a trick there. Okay, next. I didn't know I was bleeding until I tasted pennies in my mouth. Now this is like really straightforward. It's the in my mouth bit, just like in the previous one, but in this case, the word that really sells it for you is the word tasted. If he is explicitly tasting it, is gustatory. All right? Okay, next. The orange released a burst of citrusy goodness inside my mouth. Yeah, for some reason, there were two in my mouth sentences happening very close to each other, but that's pretty much random. And yes, it is also gustatory. It's not visual because you're not really looking at the orange. What you're doing is you're tasting it. And yes, the sentence is tricky because it doesn't really have the word taste in it. It implies a taste with the word citrusy. I hope that you know that oranges are citrus fruits, which means it has that bit of sour punch to it. Okay, last. I breathed in deep the sweet petrichor after the much-awaited summer showers. The meaning of the word petrichor, I hope that you guys had looked it up while you were doing this. Petrichor is that smell. It's a smell very particularly. It's a smell of wet earth, especially after rain. You know that very earthy, organic, fresh, very springtime, summery scent that you get after rains when it falls on open earth? That is petrichor. And if you had looked it up, then you would have figured it out that very, very clearly it is olfactory because it is literally describing a scent. All right, so I hope that this helped you understand with any confusions. There were some here which were slightly confusing. It's perfectly all right. Do read the instructions, please. It did very clearly say underline the words that are used for description, and very, very few of you actually underline those words. Underlining is a good technique because it helps you focus your answer, and that is really, really important. It helps you keep track of your thinking, and that is extremely important when you're doing longer questions and you want to keep track of all the points that are in your head. Okay. So if there are any questions, please just drop me a message and we will take it from there. Thank you.